welcome for another session of In Conversations With. Today we have the honor of Colin Russo. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, that's fine.
Got it right. We met at one of the Futures Thinking course that you ran together with Sohail. And I was really blown away and fascinated by that workshop, and I learned a lot from that. And so I got the pleasure of inviting him here to have a conversation with us. I'll let you also introduce yourself and a little bit of what you do.
Oh, great. Well, I'm really glad you had a great time at the Futures Thinking course. In that session I was working with the UNESCO Chair of Future Studies, Professor Sohail Inyatella, and we often work together. He actually was my supervisor of my PhD in Future Studies, and where I talked about, where I wrote about engaging city futures and how futures of cities are changing. And but my past, in terms of where I've worked, it has been in government organisations, but more recently as the Managing Director of Engaging Futures as a consultancy director, running workshops in future studies and talking with communities about how to make future studies real. I've been running courses, but also writing articles and journal articles and news pieces going on radio and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so future studies, future thinking, foresight work. When I went for the course, it kind of just opened my eyes to this, I guess, world or practice of future studies. And if you quickly do a Google of futurists and stuff like that, you get some weird quirky articles about the fact that you guys, or us, I guess I'm a trainee in this space as well now, people with crystal balls or some sort of wizardry to kind of gaze into the future in 10-15 years to kind of try to predict what's going to happen. In that course, I've learned that that's not the case at all. There's some science, there's science behind it, and there's a method and there's a framework behind it. So maybe you could tell us, in your own words, what for our viewers, what is foresight, future studies, future thinking?
Okay, well, I guess the first thing to say is that change is accelerating, and a lot of people today are actually in shock because of the acceleration of change. There's a lot of disruption to particular industries. If you're in the taxi industry, you would have been recently disrupted by Uber, for example. So what we know is we can't live in the past. We have very little time to live in the present. So really the only place we can live and really dream and think about is the future. And that's what makes futures thinking important, because as times change and change disrupts what we do, we're able to sort of take a step back, reflect, create new possibilities, new preferences, and make that real and turn that into a pathway that means we can navigate to a preferred future. So it isn't necessarily a science in the sense that it's an exacting sort of quantitative science, although we do use various scientific methods to guide us. It's actually more about the qualitative discussions, the narratives, the stories that people have that help us to think and create new pathways to the future.
So I think it's really strong in the sense that I think it was Bill Gates that basically said we over plan for the next 2 years, and you always underestimate the next 10. And the strong takeaway for me as well is that it's a narrative. It's actually looking and pushing our brain towards thinking about what we don't know outside ourselves. Take the blinkers off.
Yes.
And that was really refreshing, because I think one thing that hit me at the course was this whole concept of going from zero loop to single loop to double loop, in terms of instead of just using what I have as my experience and what's around me that I can see, I draw on the collective knowledge of others and push the boundaries of thinking. You guys said that the first day we would bend our minds. We certainly did at the end of the day. So for I guess this whole zero loop, single loop, double loop, really hit me. Do you want to talk a little bit about, explain what that is? And
Well, zero loop learning just means that people aren't learning at all. Okay, so they haven't even taken an interest in potential futures. They particularly, they don't have a mobile phone or an opportunity to actually jump on the internet and keep up to date with people. So it's a very concerning position for people to be in. We should be doing something for people who are in that position. The single loop learning is really about putting the head down and actually just working away and doing the same kind of thing every day, and learning more about perhaps the thing that we're doing, and slowly adapting, but not really seeking feedback from people to understand how is that particular process of work aligned to emerging futures. Now, in terms of emerging futures, we know that we can think across a whole range of domains. And I always talk about major change that's coming in terms of population growth and social inclusion. If a city like Brisbane is going to double in size by 2050 or 2060, which it's scheduled to do, or Gold Coast is going to be doubling in size by 2050, it means that there's going to be a great amount of disruption and social uncohesion, particularly for people who aren't ready for that amount of change because of the process called gentrification, where cities, in some sectors, some areas of city grow really quickly, leaving some groups behind. But there's a whole range of domains to explore that actually broaden that perspective. And so second loop learning and double loop learning is about trying to think, well, what are all of the other domains that we can think about? So I think about economic innovation, legislative change, environmental sustainability, technological and transport mobility issues, and also geopolitical shifts in the world. I mean, these are very, very important to us if we're working away in our jobs and we are thinking, well, where are our new markets? In Australia, we might have been just trying to work domestically and work with our local market. Whereas in fact, we've got on our doorsteps Asian countries, Indonesia, for example, Taiwan, Philippines, that are growing incredibly. And with the use of the internet and digital futures, the digital highway, we can all, although China is our number one trading partner, we're going to have a whole range of other trading partners to connect with. So just by thinking geopolitically, what's our landscape globally, we can actually make a huge shift in what we do, who we trade with, and there are great consequences for learning about those shifts before they happen to be the first into those markets. So futures thinking is really about getting foresight on what's happening in a whole range of domains, and then aligning what we do today with our hopes for a better future tomorrow.
So that's where it really struck me at the course, because even just looking at Presensol and trying to plot Presensol's path for the next 10 years, and in my role as an innovation officer, and even amongst my peers, what I feel is that a lot of people are still kind of stuck in that single loop thinking, because they're using what they know to slowly plot the next step without actually broadening the horizon, looking from outside in, and I guess pushing the boundaries into double loop thinking, because I've been using this quite a bit internally, is that when we look at our next horizon, all we can muster up at the moment is RPA, robotics process automation, because the next progressive step for what we do. But there's so much other things out there, with AI development would potentially disrupt our industry of software development, because it cuts out potentially in the next 10 years a lot of the sort of mundane development that we do, because now a robot's doing it. So what's next? And so that's the exciting, scary part, but the exciting part of that.